Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Hasten. This is another Smite video. This time it's a guide for the Monkey King called Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong is a main character in the Chinese novel Journey to the West. In this novel he's a monkey possessing great power, immense strength and capable of traveling incredibly fast. In Smite that strength and speed is certainly portrayed quite effectively as he runs and jumps around, smashing enemies into tiny bits with his staff. He is a powerful physical damage dealer capable of taking down most enemies in a duel, or surprising them by jumping on top of them for ganking purposes, and is one of the few heroes that can jungle very effectively. Sun Wukong's skill set is aimed at playing quite quickly and gives him a nice set of tools for catching his enemies or escaping when in trouble. His first ability, called Somersault, is excellent for escaping, simply traveling or chasing an enemy down. With this ability, Sun Wukong flips through the air, crashing down at a location of your choosing, doing not only physical damage to everyone within the area, but also slowing them down by 50% for 2 seconds. This ability requires quite a bit of timing, and wasting it could mean the difference between surviving a fight or not.
An enemy has been slain.
The area in which it does damage and slows enemies isn't all that big, meaning that you have to aim it quite carefully if you actually want to hit an enemy with it. Mostly it pays off aiming it a bit in front of them so you won't only hit them with it, but can also block them while they're running away. But this ability certainly isn't just used for attacking enemies. Because it works as a jump and not simply a charge, you can actually avoid taking a lot of damage when you time this correctly. You can jump over enemy abilities, avoiding them completely, but you can also jump over pretty much any kind of terrain as long as there is a path on the other side. Odin catches you off guard in his ultimate? No worries, just jump out of it. Caught while jungling? You can scale the wall quite easily, giving them no way to chase you down. Secondly, he has an ability called Overhand Smash. Overhand Smash is your straight up highest damage ability, in which Sun Wukong smashes through the ground in a cone in front of him, doing huge amounts of damage to your enemies. A few things to note here is that this ability does damage in a cone, dealing equal damage regardless of where they are in the cone. As long as they're within range, they'll take the full damage, meaning it often pays off hitting enemies that are just barely within range, in a corner, so you can hit multiple at once. Notice how I target it here so I can hit both Zeus and Ra. In addition, this skill has a bit of a charge up time, meaning it won't instantly hit and do damage when you press the button, but instead does the damage about 2 seconds after. Thirdly, Furious Monkey is quite furious indeed. Sun Wukong throws an angry monkey at his enemies, I kid you not, which hits and damages the first target you aim at and then jumps to the next one for up to 4 jumps. This furious monkey can hit the same target multiple times, meaning that if you hit 2 enemies, you'll get the most out of it and can actually, when aimed correctly, do more damage than Overhand Smash.
Double kill.
Lastly, his ultimate ability, gained at level 5, is called Year of the Monkey. This ability essentially gives Wukong a very useful disable for teamfights. Year of the Monkey will damage enemies over time, but more importantly disables for 2 seconds in a large area. Essentially you force enemies to dance, and that alone should be more than enough to play Wukong, I feel. Then, like all gods, he has a passive, and in his case it's called Fleet-Footed. This passive gives him a nice 10% bonus movement speed when out of combat, and out of combat essentially means you haven't attacked or been attacked for approximately 6 seconds. Now what you want to do is level Overhand Smash followed by Furious Monkey and then Somersault. When you reach level 5, prioritize Year of the Monkey over all of them whenever you can.
You have slain an enemy.
Laning wise, Sun Wukong is, as I mentioned before, one of the few really proficient junglers, and I would always recommend jungling whenever you can, but Sun Wukong can also work quite well in a 2 vs 2 situation, in which case it often pays off to counter jungle as well. But let's first have a look at the jungling routine. First you start off by buying Hand of the Gods, Warrior Tabi and about 2 or so health potions. Then you make your way into the left lane and keep an eye out on what your enemies are doing. If they're just relaxing at their tower, go ahead and attack the health camp at the 10-second mark and use Hand of the Gods to quickly finish off the 2 small ones and severely damage the middle one. From that point on you make your way towards the mana camp and clear that one out. You then have sort of an option. Either you backtrack towards the damage camp or instead go straight for the speed camp. At this point you also have Hand of the Gods up again to quickly clear the camp. The reason I'm saying you have this option is because either way can work, but the speed camp is better if you are certain to get a kill at level 3. If your 2 vs 1 ally isn't capable or otherwise you can't get that kill, I would recommend going for the damage buff while you have the health and mana one, and after that pick up the armor camp. Essentially you repeat this routine, but one crucial part many junglers forget is that you need to gank. If you just purely jungle, you will get behind and your 2 vs 1 ally likely won't be very happy with you. Sun Wukong is a very capable jungler because he can clear the camps relatively fast and is very much capable of ganking your enemies. If you can successfully pull this off, not only will you be far ahead of your enemies, but your 2 vs 1 ally will most likely be ahead as well. A last point to keep in mind is that it might sound like a good idea to get some camps and then go back into the lane and kill some creeps there, but this isn't jungling and you won't get much out of that. For the solo champion, anyone like Sobek, Vamana or Odin should be more than capable enough of handling themselves while you're feasting on neutral monsters. If for some reason you end up in the right 2 vs 2 lane however, for example you have a persistent ally that wants to jungle as Arachne, then you can lane normally just fine, just make sure you pick the reinforced boots for staying power instead. But what works really well is counter jungling. Chances are the enemy team will have a jungler as well, and essentially you want to be as annoying as you can for that jungler by stealing their buffs. One way or the other they're going to need the mana and health buffs, so if you want to play it safe, steal the one they aren't at. In general they always start at the health one, so stealing the mana buff is quite easily done. After which you can move back into the lane and go your merry way. Item wise, first finish the warrior tabi when jungling or reinforced boots when laning, and then get a frostbound hammer as quickly as you can. This item is pretty much key for most melee characters as it gives you a nice bit of health and thus survivability, physical damage, and most importantly slows enemies whenever you hit them, making it really hard for them to escape ganks. You got quite a number of options after that, but I would recommend picking up the Soul Eater, Void Blade and the Executioner. Then if you need magical defense, get Magi's Blessing, or if you're fighting a healer heavy team, get the Brawler's Beatstick. If instead the enemy team you're fighting is filled with tanks, get Quinn's Blades.
Enemy has been slain.
Lastly, say you're really annoyed by that monkey beating up all your allies, what are some ways to counter him? There's first of all the obvious ability section. Purification beads for example stop you from being slowed or disabled, but there's a few things to consider. First of all, when you're chasing Sun Wukong, chances are he can escape if he knows what he's doing, so if you're with a pal, don't chase him into the same direction. Here for example you can see that Kali is chasing me and I jump over the wall to escape, but Vamana was smart enough to go around and attempts to interrupt me as I make my way to safety. If Sun Wukong engages with Somersault, he has a minimum 11 seconds to wait until he can use it again, which is generally more than enough to quickly focus fire on him and take him down. If you're fighting him together, then don't stay near each other. Furious Monkey can do quite a bit of damage when it hits multiple times, and Overhand Smash has a good cone, so make sure you spread out as much as you can to avoid some damage. In short, Sun Wukong is a very capable jungler and ganker, focusing more on surprising your enemies and taking them out quickly. If you like throwing monkeys at your enemies or forcing them to dance, then get this little guy.